Gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today's mission, should we choose to accept it, is espionage of the greatest extent. And don't forget, as always, if you are enjoying this content, make sure you hit that old thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already, because we are about to get started on the layout build. Today, I'm coming to you from the Locomotive and Civil War History Museum in Kennesaw, Georgia, where they are putting on a model train show. So needless to say, today is all about looking at other people's layouts and assessing some of the things that may or may not wind up on the new layout we're building in the train room. And this first layout is really just an operations layout, where it's got some industries and things like that. But what I think is really neat about this, the guy that made this one actually has these cartridges that you load a train on and it loads it manually into the track. I think this is really, really interesting. But honestly, it should be obvious at this point that I'm really just more about operating the trains and running the trains and just having a good time. I don't necessarily need to have anything prototypical or, a lot of industries to mess around with and all that stuff. So for me, this layout is a little bit more indicative. In fact, I love the snowscape on this. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. However, I've decided, because I am modeling North Georgia, and I really think fall is just the prettiest time of year, that's what we're going to go with. Hence this next layout we're going to look at right over here. But for now, let's just enjoy this train and just its general operation. It's just beautiful layout. Now, while the first two layouts were HO, just like what we model on this channel, at least, I say we, the royal we, while the first two models were HO scale, this is actually N scale, and I'm a little envious of N scale modelers just because they have so much more, I guess, relative room per the amount of space that we would have. But I've got so much invested in HO, there's no way I could just change at this point. So for now, let's just appreciate, because this is actually a lot like what I would like to do. It's a running layout. It is more of a fall theme. It's got a lot of the colors and things like that I would like to have in my layout. And this is just gorgeous. Unfortunately, the audio is not usable, but this is literally the third layout you see when you walk in. So this gentleman is explaining to people coming in who may not have layouts, who may not know the first thing about doing layouts, how these work. Unfortunately, like I said, the audio is not working, and that is a bit of a travesty, but just enjoy this layout because this is just beautiful. Now, these next two models are not a scale that I'm aware of. They're roughly about double the size of G scale, but they do represent what these coaches would look like, and they are scratch built, so they're absolutely gorgeous. And that actually is going to lead us into our next big section of the show. Now, in this area, we're actually to see ride-along trains. All these trains are even bigger than what we just saw. These are actually designed for people to sit. Well, the caboose isn't. The caboose is literally just a decorative caboose. But the engines, and as the coaches and some of those things that you'll see in the video that's actually playing here, all these are designed to be ridden on. Somebody's got, well, I don't know, I think it's a farm or something. I haven't actually visited this location. We're going to have to do a visit to this location and check this out. But all these are literally ride-along trains, and the two steam locomotives that you're going to actually see here are actually live steam. They're true, honest-to-goodness live steam locomotives, and the diesel, the Jeep that you saw a moment ago, is actually live gasoline-driven. So very, very, very interesting locomotives, and just a representation of modeling gone to the next level. This is something I would love to do, but I simply don't have the space. So for now, we're going to enjoy the HO trains as, a nice compromise between this and the N scale that I also covet, because trains, I guess. Now, one of my absolute favorite features of this museum is the simple fact that they have a whole ton of actual historical hardware. A lot of the gears and cogs and things like that you see here are things that actually would have been used not only in the manufacturing, but also in the locomotives themselves. And over on this side, we've got a DC motor, and we've got some lathes and things like that that would have been used in production. And behind us here, you're going to actually see some steam locomotives that, as they would have been in production, albeit these are very small steam locomotives, they're honestly truly steam locomotives and fireboxes that are or were in production at the time these were removed from whatever facilities they were in. Now, one of the main features of this museum is the General. That is the train that was stolen during the Civil War and actually raced north. It's a very, very interesting story. And then right behind it, you'll see the Texas, or at least a scale model of the Texas, both of these in G scale, that is literally chasing after the General in reverse. These are things that actually happened. It's a very interesting part of history, especially for locomotive enthusiasts. And what's really interesting is they have the actual honest to goodness General, the original locomotive, nearly, not quite, it's in a little bit later state, but nearly as it sat during the Civil War. And it's right here. This is the actual train for us to enjoy. So this is a very, very interesting piece of history nestled right in this random museum just a few miles from where I live. I'm just going to take a few different angles and shots of this because it just blows my mind. Just the intricacy of these locomotives from back then and how things have changed over time. But regardless, it is just a beautiful locomotive, albeit not incredibly unique. Still a wonderful piece of history and just a wonderful piece of physical architecture. And as one would expect, they have a number of dioramas, especially in scale, HO scale in this situation, depicting the various events from that time. Now with the history lesson out of the way, and you no doubt prepared for the quiz at the end of this video, let's go ahead and jump back into layouts, starting with this HO layout, where we're going to follow the steam train basically around the circumference of this. This is a big, ginormous oval layout. It's all modular. You'll see places where it'll break apart, and so they could travel with it. And we've seen this at a few other shows before. There's some beautiful Easter eggs here. Case in point, this father and son fishing. You'll see up here in a moment a shop where they're doing some welding. Obviously all done with LEDs and things like that. Just a number of just beautiful pieces of scenery. And once again, things that we can incorporate into the layout that's incoming here shortly. But for now, just enjoy and appreciate all the work and the craftsmanship that went into building such a beautiful layout. And then appreciate the fact that this is mobile. They literally take this from show to show to show. That is the whole reason this exists. I also wanted to include layouts that were really easygoing in this, because obviously this is just a Thomas the Train layout. There's nothing really overly special about it. But what I kind of appreciate is the fact that this person can set this up a million different ways at a million different shows. I kind of like the spirit of that personally. Obviously not what we're going to go for, but you got to show respect where respect is due, and that somebody travels with all of these miniatures and just sets them up differently each and every time. Okay, so this is where we're going to get a little bit weird, deviate quite a bit, but I couldn't help but film this. This is just super fun. They bring this every single year, at least at this show. I don't know about other shows, but it is such a weird deviation, but I can't help but appreciate the ingenuity, because obviously you see the monorail here, there's like a maglev looking thing behind it, and then obviously if you look there in the background, there's just a typical Lego railroad. But a lot of these buildings, a lot of the things and features that you see here are completely one-off. There are some that are based on regular buildings and stuff like that. It's just so cool. But I want you to look around and, you know, name, obviously everyone's gonna love the trains. The trains are so cool. The monorail's cool. They've got a Thomas train on the other side. They've got just a commuter, almost like a Shinkansen. That's really cool. And right here, you've got like a McDonald's, and right next to it, you've got a Waffle House, some really cool stuff. But I want you to look at some of these features and just really appreciate, yes, it's a bit of a muddled mess, but it's also Lego, and it's really for the kids. I really do like this monorail. I think the monorail is so neat. Obviously, we're going to start here in the future section. We're going to get more to the regular stuff here in a few minutes. But just check this out. I love this little feature down here. This is one of my favorites. I believe this is the first time they've added this, but they added a crewmate from the Among Us game. Just so neat to see so many little Easter eggs in here. And I want you guys to look at this while we're going through it, and let me know your favorite Easter egg, some of your favorite features that you see in here. It can be in this future section, it could be in the more, you know, modern section. Love the little Starbucks, because there's one in every corner, let's be real. So just let me know in the comments, what is your favorite Easter egg? What did you appreciate the most about this layout? Because I think all of us, you know, everybody watching this at some point was a kid, and most of us probably had Legos, and this is like a dream layout. Like, to not just have Legos, but to have the Lego trains, and I mean, just a vast city, and all of that crazy stuff. And there will be a lot of Easter eggs in here from the Lego movie too, so obligatory, I guess you would say, but really neat. I'm sorry, someone's clearly jamming our signal. Just a moment. Now this is really cool here. This is for those of you that aren't Atlanta locals, you may or may not know, it is a weirdly popular thing, but the Big Chicken is a KFC restaurant. It actually didn't start out as a KFC restaurant. There's a whole history behind it, but it's a very famous KFC restaurant here in Atlanta. And this is not a model that anybody else has built. And funny enough, it actually operates, but they built this thing by scratch. But we're just going to continue down the whole layout here and just appreciate some of just the visuals and things like that. I wish you could hear some of the sounds, but unfortunately the audio there were a lot of kids. You'll notice a lot of jump cuts and things like that. I'm trying to cut out most of the children because I don't think parents would really appreciate having their children in the video. And I'm going to focus a little bit here on Ghost Rider because he's easily one of my favorite Marvel characters. But just so cool. Just, once again, continuing on with the Easter eggs and Just the neat little things. And you have to respect the ingenuity of somebody that said, I could take all that time and put it into like a big HO layout or an O-scale layout or whatever. But you know what I did? I put that into Legos. And not only that, I travel with this. I just think it's so cool. And I love this little superhero battle here, going out of the Daily Bugle. I think this is just hilarious. And yes, your eyes do not deceive you. There were some DC heroes and Marvel heroes battling it out. Just a really cool layout altogether. I can't say enough great stuff about what this represents and how much fun this was for the kids. So, absolutely love it. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments section. And once again, I know it's a deviation from the norm, but I absolutely can't say enough great stuff about someone who had the foresight to bring a Lego train layout to, you know, a show like this. Just absolutely top-notch respect for me. Now, this next little layout we're going to look at is pretty small, but to me, this was my favorite of the show for one very good reason. If you pay close attention, this is not HO scale, but it is using HO scale track. This is what they call ON30, which is narrow gauge modeling, but it's using O gauge buildings and trains and all that, but it's modeled on HO to be like the equivalent of a narrow gauge track. It's, in a lot of respects, it's not in scale, but it is also a very cost-effective way to do narrow gauge modeling. In fact, we're gonna do some HON30 on the big layout. I have a very good plan for a nice little logging community and all that. So we are going to kind of steal a little bit of these ideas. This was some of the espionage I was talking about, but I absolutely can't say enough. I adore this. Now, this next layout isn't really all that unique or even groundbreaking, but it is just a lot of fun, so I wanted to showcase this. It is the typical 3-rail Lionel O-scale stuff, but they did something really, really, really neat here. But let's check out the just the general operation, the general layout for a moment, and then I'll show you what they did that was really, well, you can already see it there. You've got kids touching buttons, and it actually is operating different things around the layout. So if you take a look down here, aircraft beacon. Let's see what this does. And it just lights up the aircraft beacon. Pretty straightforward stuff. There's a ton of these around the layout, and I'm going to go play with these for a moment and kind of show them to you guys. But just enjoy the general operation and just the ingenuity, because this is literally just designed to entertain these kids when they're out here at the show. And I think it is just so neat. And here's another little just basic Lionel oval, but at this point I'm filming everything. I want to show you guys literally everything that's here, but we'll get to some really, really interesting stuff here in just a moment. For now, let's just appreciate people that brought their neat little layouts to the show. Now, this was a really neat one. This is another one of those that had a bunch of buttons and switches and things. This was mostly for railroad operations. You could turn the trains on and off. But I was able to sneak back here when there weren't a bunch of kids. Because once again, I'm trying to avoid filming the kids because I'm sure parents wouldn't appreciate that. But for the most part, this was designed so kids could just run and operate the trains and just have genuinely a good time. Most of this room is pretty much that same kind of motif, as you'll see. But let's just take a moment to appreciate someone's ingenuity and, really kind of forethought when it comes to this, because let's face it, a lot of times these kids come to these shows and they're told, don't touch this, look, don't touch, look, don't touch, look, don't touch. And to finally have that opportunity to literally run the railroad, I think is just one of the coolest ideas. Once again, nothing truly groundbreaking here, just a very generic O-scale layout. But it is interesting, it does have some cityscape to it. It's not, groundbreaking or very prototypical, but just a fun one for kids to look at. And finally with some HO, and this one's very much in the same vein. It's not very prototypical, it's not like high detail or anything like that, but it was just another fun one set up in the same room for the kids to really enjoy. And let's be honest here, we're all basically just kids at heart. Let's just be really real about it. We're all literally just looking for an excuse to go play trains at the end of the day. Now this one's actually a static display at the museum itself, and all it is O-scale representations of Southern Railway locomotives over the years. It's very interesting. There's some information cards here with a lot of detail on it and all that. I'm not going to go too deep into it. Most people probably recognize the vast majority of these, but I just thought it was very interesting. Now this is another one of my absolute favorites. This is a really interesting layout. It doesn't do anything too overwhelming and crazy, but it is a two-railed O-scale layout, which is extremely rare. There are two-railed O-scale layouts out there. There definitely is in fact, this is an entire club for two-railed O-scale, but you just don't see a whole lot of it. It's usually the three-rail. Also, the level of detail on this is absolutely gorgeous. You can see they put a ton of work into this. Even the backdrops, while they are just like painted coroplast, or looks like photographs in coroplast, they're just absolutely gorgeous. Now we get to this creek area underneath the bridge, and you can see the level of detail that they actually put into this. Just phenomenal. I can't get enough of this layout. Now moving on, we get to the N scales, and we're going to kind of close this out with the N scales, but this layout was really cool. This is obviously a modular layout. You can see the breaks and things like that, and while not quite as cohesive as some of the other layouts, it shows you a big variance in the types of landscapes and things like that. It's just really, really, really nice. I believe, unless I'm mistaken, this was actually several different pieces that they just kind of slapped together for the show. Maybe I could be wrong on that, but that's kind of what it seemed like to me. I'm thinking maybe this was really designed as a much larger, more encompassing layout. Usually they'll put partitions between these sections and things like that, but I really, really, really liked this, and there was enough to really keep it all very interesting. And just another really good example of what you could do if you just put your mind to producing something pretty unique. And the one thing I really liked about this is the fact that it's one long shot to and fro. So they go up here to this big loop at the end, it loops around and just goes back the other direction. Now, I saved easily the best for last. While this isn't my top #1 favorite layout, this was the biggest and best layout of the show, as it always is, and hilariously, it's N scale. This was a massive, massive layout, and you're going to see a whole bunch here. So let's just jump in. I'm going to take little breaks here and there just to let you just take in everything that there is, because there is so much to observe. So as the Southern Heritage Unit actually hilariously emerges, actually looks like there's 3 Heritage Units on here. That's pretty awesome. As they emerge from the tunnel here, we're going to just really begin kind of a clockwise, because they're moving kind of counterclockwise at this point. And as you'll see, this layout is made with just so much involved. I would be chasing this train the other way for, 10 minutes before it even came back around here. So we're just going to kind of go counterclockwise around here and just appreciate the different sceneries, different landscapes. And there's some really, really neat, unique features that make this layout just a wonder to behold every single time. Of course, you gotta love the kaiju fight. No questions about that. How often do you see Godzilla and King Kong battle it out on your railroad layout? Sorry. Once again, I've said before, I'm a kid at heart. I love it. And I love this model of Stone Mountain. Just a neat little addition here. And of course, Stone Mountain doesn't really have a train tunnel going through it. I don't imagine anybody's going to want to bore through quartz like that. But a nice addition to this layout. And of course, we have a traffic accident, because you can't have traffic without an accident. This is Atlanta. And of course, we have this little loop here at the end. And this is where the trains would kind of come around. And this is almost built in like a really large T, but it's even more complex than that. But the best way I can describe it is trains have like 3 or 4 different loop points like this around the track. It's just very interesting. And of course, we can't do that without coming around to another loop. And we actually meet back up with our Santa Fe. So, very cool. I actually wasn't expecting to see him back over here again. But definitely a treasure to behold. And I love this roundhouse. I would love to find a place to hide a roundhouse on our track, but I just don't know if they're so massive on an HO layout, and our room is so small. But we'll have to see what happens. Now, what's really nice here, since this is, N scale, that's not a 4 foot turn, and that's nothing for N scale. That's, it's so easy. But on HO, you're not going to fit that in there. Here's just another perspective of that same corner. And we're going to start moving around the inside here. And I'm just going to kind of sweep the track as best I can with the gimbal here. And try to get some nice clean shots for you guys. Now, if you didn't notice that little Easter egg here, that's a Chicago Metro rail. It's a commuter rail that's basically run a lot like Amtrak in the Chicago area. I loved seeing that. That was a nice little Easter egg. And this comes to one of the interesting spur points on the track. This kind of tees off of the rest of the track. It comes to something really, it doesn't really fit necessarily with the rest of the motif, but it is so cool. I just love it. So let's kind of scan down here and see what we've got. And you'll see here a steam train actually emerging from that. I think that's a Challenger emerging from the spur. And we'll kind of use this as a nice little segue to slide in here and view kind of this neat little addition, like I said. I love this little donut shop. I've always been a fan of that it needs a little tiny Iron Man on there eating a donut. So I actually have one of those donut shops on an HO scale, and we will 100% be putting Iron Man on that donut shop. This is actually pretty cool. If we kind of zoom out here, you're going to see that there's this big castle. It's like almost big German-like hillside layout, almost like Norse in a way. I don't even know. It's just beautiful. Doesn't fit at all with the rest of the motif, but I think it's just so cool. And it's got a big dragon on top. I mean, what is there not to love about this? Oop, we got a little bit of a train accident here. Looks like he fell off the cliff. I didn't know there were rails up on top of the cliff. Who knew? But it's the whole thing is just really neat. And it's got this little town down here, and man, I can't get enough of this. I really absolutely adore this layout. And it's so well planned out too, I want to emphasize. Because you notice that everything kind of crosses over and figure eight back on itself, and then still meets up in such a manner that it figure eights, you know, that does this 90-degree crossover and figure eight section back into the main layout. And they could use it, they could take it off. It probably really depends upon the show, but I really adore that. Now, obviously, this is a lesser finished section. Looks like they're adding on to this, and so you can kind of see what they're working on. I love this little Japanese village here, and there's something really interesting addition to this that you're going to see here in just a few minutes. I can't emphasize how cool this is, and some of you could probably sense what's happening, but I'm going to save that for the very end. There's our old friend the Santa Fe over on the other side again. So we'll kind of slowly meander down here. We're going to meet up with him once again. And once again, there's the Santa Fe. Now, we've gone darn near the whole length of this, and I know there's some cuts and things like that in here, but you've literally seen the vast majority of this layout. It is massive, especially for N scale. Like, if this was an HO, it'd be one large thing, but this is absolutely gigantic, especially for an N scale layout. I can't get enough of this. This is one of the reasons that I envy N scale modelers, because just the amount of, I guess, terrain and information and everything that you could fit into an N-scale layout is just phenomenal. And as I did allude to before, I've got to close this out with the Series 500 Shinkansen. I think this is just a beautiful train. Doesn't fit whatsoever, but you know, you had the Metra and a Union Pacific with Stone Mountain in Georgia, so who cares? It's just so fun and so cool. Guys, if you did enjoy this, make sure you hit that old subscribe button down below. Make sure you like and comment something down below. Let me know which layout was your favorite, which Easter egg was your favorite, all of the above. I'll be back with you guys really, really soon. We've got to start building the benchwork for the new layout. I've still got some work to do on the Tyco layout. I actually have a lot of work left to do on the Tyco layout, but I'm really looking forward to this. We have so much to go, and I'm so fired up. So I hope to see you guys again really, really soon.